Hello, everybody. I wish I could be there with you in person this evening for our Ash Wednesday liturgy. Unfortunately, I cannot be, so I do want to share the message that is on my heart with you this evening. I want to thank you for coming to the service, and thank you, Alan, for officiating. You heard the sound of that clock, that familiar ticking sound. Well, that's a very special clock in my life. It belonged to my grandfather Doyle Swan, my dad's dad. I remember about the time that he purchased the clock. It was a big deal to him at the time. He was not a man of great means, and so an acquisition like this seemed like a bit of a luxury to buy a clock that chimes. It's from the New England Clock Company. It's one of those wind-up clocks that you have a key and you wind it up and it will last for about a week. He showed it to me up on the mantle and took great pride in demonstrating how to wind it and then how the chimes work. And I wondered if someday I might inherit the clock, and indeed I did. Well, it's not exactly my style. It has kind of an old-fashioned look to it. It's a tall mantle clock, and it has finials on the top of it that really screamed old person, so I didn't like that. I went for many years without doing anything to the clock and even using it, and when I finally tried to start it, it didn't work at all, so I took it to a clock repairman in Florida, and he fixed it up and got it going. But then I put it back on the shelf, and then eventually it worked its way into storage, and that's where it's been here, actually, in Fawnskin, in the basement, the storage basement of the cabin, for about 7 years. During the move, I broke some of the finials on the top of it and scratched the sides of it somehow. It's more weathered than you would think it should be. And when I pulled it out a couple of weeks ago, I was able to get it ticking, but I couldn't get it to chime. To my delight, it's on time, so the pendulum swing is actually accurate, and that was good news. I've fiddled with it and tinkered with it for a while and never could get it to chime until yesterday. I got back into the backside of it again and was determined to get the chimes working. It was at that moment I realized there was a simple lever that you pull that makes the chime go on or off. So I pulled the lever, and lo and behold, it started to chime. Only problem was it was a half hour off, so it would do the hour chimes on the half hour. Well, I gave it time to correct itself, and it did. It actually calibrated itself over about an hour, and now I'm happy to tell you that the clock is not only ticking, but it's chiming on time. Well, I went a step further and knocked the old finials off, carefully, of course, so that all the remnants of the parts of the clock that I didn't like are now gone. And I look forward to the near future when I can actually refinish it. I'm going to just antique the wood, and I think it's going to look really nice. Doyle, my grandfather, would be so pleased. And now I'm pleased because I have him with me in this way. There's something about the sound of a ticking clock and the accent of the chimes. It helps me value time, the increments of it, the passing of it. It's also a reminder, sometimes a disquieting reminder. What have you done, Stuart, with the past hour anyway? And what do you plan to do with the coming hour? Ash Wednesday reminds us that our days and our times are in God's hands, and actually we find that we have a limited number of those days and times. And so when you come forward tonight or today, and you have the ashes placed upon your head, and we say, from dust you came, and to dust you shall return, it's really a startling reminder of time. There are few things that I wrestle with more in life than the finitude of it all. My life upon the earth is a gift without a promise of any specific duration. Same with you. My father fell asleep a year ago and he never woke up. I think of that and it unsettles me. When I go to bed myself, I often think, what good have I done with this day? If it were to be my last day upon the earth, would I be happy with it? There was a spiritual giant of sorts from the Catholic Church in the 1500s, a woman who defied her own times and even defied the church, really, by speaking out the way she did. Her name was Teresa of Avila. And this is what she had to say about time. She said, "Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. Though all things pass, God does not change. Patience wins all things. But he lacks nothing who possesses God, for God alone suffices." God alone suffices. I say this to myself as I had told you in a sermon not long ago when I was driving home from the East Coast in January. I just blurted out loud to God. I said, "My days and time are in your hands. My days and time are in your hands." There's a certain liberation about that when I confessed it. Time has no bounds. It's only our experience of time that has bounds. We live and breathe with the invitation to eternity. The finitude of our time can be our friend or our enemy. When we befriend it, we make the most of its potential. When we fear it, we reduce the light for our path and the distance we could otherwise attain. When we fear the bounds of our mortal time, we have yet to taste the glory of time well spent in preparation for our eternal home in God. As Teresa of Avila says, "For God alone suffices." My grandfather's clock is still ticking. The chime is working, and I'm so thankful for that. And so must I. I must work while I have breath. I must live and share with others in this abundance that is the hope on which we stand. My life is hidden with Christ in God. Now, today, tomorrow, forever. Amen.